Really happy to see you all here, and I hope more people join us in some time. I see some familiar faces, and I also see some names that I don't know. Whoever you are, welcome. So this is the first session of this 5-week journey that Inner Climate Academy has designed and is offering, and we have invited quite a few amazing people to join us and share their work with us and their journeys with us, starting with Suprabha, who we have here. So if you don't know Inner Climate Academy's work, we provide spaces for inner reflection, collaborative inquiry, and facilitated exploration of our relationship with the earth. And our idea, our vision is to bring forth an earth-honoring, life-affirming human presence on the planet, which is a very lofty goal, but we'd like to work on it, even if they are small steps. And with this particular 5-week exploration that we have planned, it's sort of, it has elements of self-paced exploration for you, where we'll send you readings and questions and prompt questions that you can sit with. We have talks, we have a workshop coming up next weekend on emotional resilience, and we have some conversations designed to sort of get an insight into what it is to sit with these questions that we are coming across today, the challenges of living in this world at this time. And also, how do people go from that overwhelming feeling of despair into a state of active hope? And the word active being really important there. Active as in a hope that comes from our own active participation in the transformation of the world. And what is that? And I think we have some living examples of people who've gone through their own journeys where they have come to that place where their own work gives them hope for the world. So this is the beginning of this, and I'm very, very happy to invite and have Suprabha Seshan here. She's a conservationist and an environmental educator and a beautiful writer. If you haven't read her writings yet, I'm a big fan. And she's committed to the rewilding of habitat and human beings. And she lives and works in Gurukula Botanical Sanctuary in Wayanad, Kerala, which is in the Western Ghat Mountains of India. Supi, welcome. Very happy for you to be here, and over to you.
Thanks, Lakshmi. So nice that for the invitation and a chance really to look together at some important things. For today, I thought I would break the session into a few sections and do a little reading or a little exploration, and then we open it out to comments or a discussion, and then we do the next one and we see how it goes. I think that the need of the hour is to to grow relationships, and I would like it to be a back and forth, and from my side an invitation also for all of you to come here someday. So I thought I'd begin with a little intro to something I'd written previously, and these are just ways of thinking and ways of seeing and ways of exploring language in connection with the world we're in. So this is a little piece. It's an intro to other works that I've done. It's called Rainforest Etiquette in a World Gone Mad, and that's the choice of title for this talk as well. Seeds waiting in soils, spores stalking by air and ground, huddles of beings huddling tight, close, waters and winds traveling the whole earth, connecting everyone, memories burning in each and every cell of each and every creature, songs looping the stars and the planets and the sky and earth and birds and insects and trees, and stories tangling through the generations of each and every culture. All these biding their time, I hear them, feel them, waiting in the air and under my feet, inside my dreams. I pick them up through the thresholds of my awareness in the forest, on the edges of the forest, and far downstream from the forest. I find them glinting through the eyes of my fellow conspirators in this sanctum for all beings. Here in a teeming huddle on a still green shoulder of a mighty mountain range, a monsoon engorged flank of an ancient but eviscerated subcontinent, we make our stand. Someday the world will be free again. This I take to be a given. And it will be full with creatures again. This too is a given. The oceans will thrive once more, and the lands and winds and sweet waters and icy expanses as well. Faith in life, this I have, as every cell of my body has in me. Once hubris crashes, wisdom will flow in the veins of humans. It will, it has to. In the natural world's prescience, I find courage. Here I place my conviction and my science. The patterns my senses decipher are not to be denied. Those of us who live to see that day, survivors all, will gather around fires and under trees. We will sing and dance and tell tales and listen. Ballads of heart-stopping beauty and valor will pour out under the brilliant night sky. By day, we shall wander through the land, fecund and full once more. Until then, this, neither song nor story, but a few words carrying some thoughts on ways of perceiving, experiencing, and relating to beings in a biome. The rainforest, what's left of it, is sustained by millions of creatures attuned to each other. Behavior is key. It sustains or destroys relationships. Likewise, it sustains or destroys community. In relationship, I place my most profound hope, not in systems, not in hierarchies, not in concepts, but in vast huddles of life feeling their way through and around each other, biding their time. Rainforest Etiquette in a World Gone Mad was and continues to be the rubric for a series of talks I started giving in 2009, based on a mosaic of pieces culled from years of encounters and observations in and around this feisty pod of life called the Gurukula Botanical Sanctuary. These included stories from my life in the forest, gleanings from my friends, who are my most precious lifelong counsel, the work we did together to protect the natural world, books and writers I loved, and my travels to other places. The talk was intended to be experiential and also activist. I evolved a language that I believed was dreamlike and present moment rich. I used description, natural history, imagination, vocal mimicry, tales of different depths and dimensions, some personal, others gifted to me. The rubric allowed for great flexibility. Just about anything could fit in, so long as the inspiration was from the forest where I lived. I sought to change our bodily awareness of ourselves and our world, to become creatures in habitat as we listen to these words. I wanted to appeal to every cell in my audience's bodies through a weave of narrative born on sensory detail of wild beings and processes, as well as ecological, psychological, spiritual, and political inquiry. I wanted my friends to imagine the beauty and fecundity of my rainforest home and to long to dwell in something like that. I wanted them to walk out determined to defend the natural world and to resurrect it where it had been decimated by any means whatsoever. The talk hinged on a mission to snap the dangerous and powerful ties to a way of living and that has estranged modern humans from the ground of our existence, from communion with other beings. In these talks, as well as in this essay, I share a view of wild beings as central, firstly to themselves, and then also to humans, and critically to the future as the only viable existence, the only solution. It is natural community that will rescue, revive, and sustain itself. Nothing else will do. If humans want to survive, it's imperative to recommune with other creatures on their creaturely terms. From the trees under whom I live and the way the natural world passes on memories through generations, I have a taste of what forever could mean. I have a taste of what change could mean. I have a taste of what action could mean. I look out of my window and up into the canopy and beyond the silhouette of a large annually tree to the dazzling star-filled sky. The world has been like this for a long, long time. Conviviality is a manifestation of sanity. This wild forest community has existed uninterrupted for millions of years. The oldest biome on the planet gives me daily proof this is how things could be and should be. The joy of this knowledge, now seeped into my bones over 3 decades, here grows resilient. To meet the human drama as it rise up in the vice of hubris is a lighter challenge now. And yet, from the same forest and this same tree, and from my own body and community, I have a sense of how life moves and grows and dies and transforms. Nothing is exactly the same next moment. This too will change. Every moment of every day, the clamor of this still wild world, vibrant with the voices of wild beings who shape this land with their bodies, rings into my ears, urging that I listen to the truth of their presence. Every day, my non-human neighbors teach me something new about language, about phrases nestled inside apparently simple vocabulary, through tone and gesture, through the sprung speech of bodies relating. Every day, they teach me something new about behavior. Over time, it seems we all learn to live here with one another by changing the things we do or don't do, or refrain from. We change our behavior towards each other. We need to do this if we want to live here and to sustain this place and each other. This collaborative human, non-human enterprise, at once tender, at once defiant, proliferates against all odds, beauty unfolding in the heart of Holocaust, even as the planet goes down. I've lately come to believe that it is life that hubris fears the most, and that it is life that will destroy the machine, as ism, system, civilization, authoritarian techniques, dogma, and patriarchy. Here in this community bursting with wild plant, animal, and human refugees, I've witnessed at first hand that when the plants are protected and when they return, the animals return. I've witnessed the reverse as well. When the animals are free, they bring the plants along with them. In fact, I've witnessed wherever a living being newly arrives, very soon others gather, non-human and human. And so my life revolves around flowers and ferns and frogs and snakes and birds and butterflies and elephants and monkeys. I spend my days with mosses, clouds, mists, and streams. I live among hills and winds in the company of stars, the moon, the trees, and rain. I live and work among diverse and intriguing humans. The philosopher J. Krishnamurti once said that behavior exposes the content of consciousness. But what do we mean by consciousness or awareness or thought or personhood or life? I take his questions and his words and my questions for a walk in the forest. I've done it for many years now. I ask the trees to teach me something about consciousness. I ask stones and the river and clouds and wind and rain, as well as plants and animals, to tell me something about action. I invite birds and frogs and monkeys and elephants to teach me music and language through musical repartees and hone my sense of art through singing and vocalizing with them. I learn how to speak and convey my deepest felt truths to them. I ask the mountains about time. I ask them all if they will teach me the myriad forms of selfhood and what it means to be an individual. I enter communion with them, the swiftest thing in the world. I ask them why separation exists and conflict and strife. I sift through fallen leaves for signs of sorrow. I investigate material and immaterial dimensions of being alive and sentient in company of non-humans. I ask each of them how to relate and entreat them to breathe into me, to nudge or to dazzle open my awareness. What do I need to do to be so richly embodied as they are? And where so basically, I show up, I make my requests, and then I wait. Behavior is key. Every gesture of ours, of yours and mine, every expression and tone and movement reveals not only our conditioned behaviors, but also our core awareness. The flow between sentient beings in a wild and fecund universe. We cannot escape our inherence in the web of life. We cannot escape nature expressing itself through us, through everything that we are as embodied, sensual, communal, and spiritual entities. Ecology teaches us these things in the deepest and truest sense. Environmental philosopher and writer Derek Jensen says, it's this culture's behavior that's killing the planet. And I agree. So it's long past time that we learned etiquette from the natural world. So that's the end of that little section, just to introduce a way of thinking maybe that I've fallen into. And maybe just a few minutes, we can have a little back and forth, and then I'll read something else. Is there something that people would like to say?
I just want to say thank you. Your words are so beautiful and poetic and really resonate with me. It's quite healing and just so beautiful. Thank you.
Great.
There are some things people writing on the chat. Supriya says, beautiful. It was really beautiful and reassuring from Lakshmi. And Rukmini says, yes, so poetic. Want to listen more. Yes, okay. We couldn't have asked for a better invocative beginning of this journey, really. Feeling, yeah, quite blessed at this point.
Well, great. So I suppose in response to Lakshmi's invitation, this is really, the whole thing is about multi-species, about relationship. And so I tried to find something that I had explored or written. And since there's, I think you're looking at art and music and dance and so on, this is a little sharing from me. If there isn't anything that somebody would like to sort of add to this, I'll go on to another piece and then we can just move like that. Is that okay? So I've sought a truth of being that no man nor woman could teach me, as every human I know has been somewhat estranged, broken, alienated from their body or from other people or from nature. To be modern is to be alienated while being trapped in the ways of civilization. I've sought an integrity of language, spoken, gestured, and written, emerging from the depths of the forest, like creatures do, unself-conscious but aware, undistorted but alive, bearing impassioned but unsentimentalized truths, each to be eaten, digested, and transformed into the truth of the next moment. Long ago, I thought that I could find forest mind by giving it mine, the various states called curiosity, attention, empathy, affection, and patience. I thought I had to do something to find this, to read, inquire, study, contemplate, observe, explore, and so on. I thought I needed to find another human more experienced than I to learn this forest way of being. Inadvertently, I gave it my body. I noted this only many years after coming here. The mind and body were rarely functioning as an undivided whole. I mean, that's the modern human, isn't it? So that was true for me, and that is true for me. One pursuit in the head and another kind of engagement in the flesh. I began to explore this divide. Whatever I did or didn't do mentally, wherever I went through the probes of my intellect and inquiry, the body did its own thing. Eventually, I came to see that as the real thing, for it was a material thing, and it was a truly ecological thing. While I looked for meaning through the mind in some defined or definable way, using little encouraging devices like, if I do this, then I will understand that, that kind of thing that we do in learning. The body was immediately snuggling into the air and the rain and the scents of other beings, tasting the richness of berries and leaves, feeling inwardly and outwardly present in both. Immediately and wholly busy with interbeing. So here I am thinking interbeing, as we all are. Meanwhile, the body is busy being interbeing, right now. The body was busy experiencing in the immediate way that all experiencing entails, which is just something present and in the moment. The mind was busy projecting, remembering, conceptualizing, planning. The mind, of course, did wondrous things and often difficult and dangerous things, taking the body along with it, places where no woman should go. A lot of these places were real. Some of them were in the mind. The mind had an effect on the body, has an effect on the body. And the body, through all its feeling states, has unforeseen effects on the mind. Time flew by. A young woman became a middle-aged woman. Lots of things happened, beautiful things and difficult things. But I walked and walked and walked. This is the one religion I subscribe to, walking. Now it's been decades of walking and daydreaming in secret corners of a wild and unstoppably fecund land base. A kind of rewilding of the body began to happen, dissolving the barricades. Another kind of attention kicked in, and I saw simply how the body was part of ecology. In direct and obvious ways, I was being eaten up from within and without. The forest, sucking, nibbling, drinking from every tissue and organ I believed to be mine, got richer and more fecund. I was being fed upon. I was being snuggled into. I'd awakened from dreams or daydreams to find myself being eagerly probed into and worked upon. They, mostly unseen others, were busy. Little bubbles would form between my fingers. Little swabs of flesh would disappear between my toes, leaving itchy wetnesses behind. My nails turned color. My science told me that these were fungi taking residence underneath. The scalp was always full of sensations. Tiny flies would buzz into my ears and nostrils and perch in the corners of my eyes. I've swallowed many a midge while walking. Leeches became close companions and did fine work. They drained me of bad blood and encouraged the body to make more sweet blood. My blood has been transfused now many times over. I've had scores of ghost leeches too, and ghost bites and ghost attacks of all kinds. And I find this true of new people who come, they're always being attacked and nobody can see what it is, you know? The anal, the vaginal, the soft inner thighs and armpits and ear passages made themselves known. Somebody else seemed to be enjoying them too. While thinking and feeling were in the early years directed to ideas and perceptions through the eyes, the skin became more and more the center stage of experiencing interbeing. Eventually, the mind's skin too became the dance ground of many creatures, the playground, the feeding ground, the mating ground. I started to feel little frissons of action even in this invisible domain. I saw how mind devoured, digested, absorbed others. I saw how my mind, or how the mind, was a dwelling place where other beings did their own thing, had their own will and manner and consequence. I saw how I was being fed upon or dissolved. I've been for the greater part unaware. By I mean the I that is not in the body. The I that is so sure that it can do without a body. The I that seems to float around without a body, knowing the body only as an inconvenient and malformed appendage to drag around. Anyhow, strange little things seem to happen. Vaguely, the aged mind was aware of them. Ants, mosquitoes, bees, leeches, ticks, mites were the easy ones. They're also obvious. Fungus, various pustules and lesions were harder. Somehow they crept upon you and into you so insidiously. All kinds of beings made their home in the gut, and the gut was always in some state or another, making itself known all the way from tongue to rectum. Cheru and Chorian and Anamaiki and Katupogela, plants all, did their magic. The mud in the paddy fields and the stream side did its magic. The air carried all sorts of things, from spores to caterpillars to midges to lightning strikes to scents wafting this way and that. I didn't pay serious attention to them, except when they appeared as concept connected to what the annals of tropical ecology said. All these things are part of ecology conceptually. But eventually, perception itself altered. The physicality of experience was unavoidable. The materiality of ecology was unnegatable. The self in ecology was undeniable. Memories got reworked, layered, turned inside out, built up and broken down. As my skin and limbs and hormones and gut and feeling sense of world and self changed, so did my writing. Thoughts became communal. There was always a plenum of creatures in my head, as there were myriad dwellers upon and within my body. Feelings began to extend from every pore of my skin, feeling their way into the air, feeling their way within, a kind of ever-present itching of the most delicious kind. So I don't want to go on with this because it's just on and on like this. But I want us to recognize that the body is the seat of ecology. And the problem of the modern world is the disconnect from this fact. It's a fact. We cannot avoid this fact. Yeah. So the last 2-3 sentences of that is enlightenment, not enlightenment. Enlightenment is our natural state. It's unstoppable, whether you're aware of it or not. And this is what we need to ally ourselves around as we meet the present, state of the world. Over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Supi. I'm so touched by your words. I've only read them, and to hear you speak them is something else. They come alive. I'm just going to open the floor out to questions, comments, anything you'd like to share. And questions can be anything that's coming up around what Supi spoke about, but also maybe the Anthropocene or despair, whatever that it's what's alive for you right now. If we can make this a conversation, that would be beautiful. And Supi's also, as she said, she wants this to be a relationship. So let's give ourselves too, as she has given her to us today.
So some comments, huh, Lakshmi?
There are comments on.
I haven't read them yet, but
yeah, I mean, Supriya says this listening is like meditation.
Oh.
Few people.
Hi, Lakshmi, can I ask a question?
Yes, guys, and then Rukmini has raised her hand, so go for it.
Hi, Suprabha. I'm Gayatri. I am actually working with Vasant, whom you, Vasant Bosco.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice to finally meet you, even though it's online. So many questions to ask you. I just wanted, one thing that came to mind was how do you think that your experience is different from indigenous communities or people who unlike you, and how close have you got, do you think, to what they experience?
I have had 30 years of relationships. I have friends who are of this area and who have been of this area for generations, thousands of years, so they're close friends. I will never pretend to myself that that experience that I have is at all anything like what they have. It's not even something I can imagine. Paniya people who've lived here for thousands of years, amongst the oldest cultures of this country, they are of the forest in ways that, it'll take a few generations, for us. At the same time, what I feel is very important to recognize is the body is something else. The body is intimate. That is its business. It cannot survive a moment without this intimacy. And if we are looking to work in conservation or education, as I am, connecting with people around this great disconnect, this is something that I can profoundly point towards. I will not say that I know, but I will say the body knows. The body is the seat of ecology, like it is for an ant, like it is for an elephant, like it is for a forest. And itself, from at least what we know from science, itself is so complex and full of so many thousands of species. But I don't go to things that I cannot see. Like, I don't know the thousands of species of bacteria in my gut, but I do know the thousands and millions of creatures around me through the daily interactions with them. And by attending to them, and that's what the indigenous folks have gifted me, is a quality of attention, is just talking and listening and walking, and the leisurely just relaxation, and they don't make a big deal of it. So it's a journey into a conversation, and the body's conversation. So there, I believe nobody is alienated. Nobody can be alienated. It is the prerogative of life. And if you're alive and you're not a machine, then you know it. So that's sort of where I'm I feel that I can contribute something. And this is in dialogue with my indigenous friends.
Thank you, Supi. Rukmini, you have your hand up, and then Supriya.
Yeah. I probably have tons of questions I can't yet articulate, but just want to name how I'm feeling. On the one hand, there's so much relief in hearing what you said about the body and how it's so easy for the body to integrate and interbe, and that's relieving. And simultaneously, I'm very present to this huge mental reaction to what you said early on about, to be modern is to be alienated and to be trapped in this civilization. And there's these two really contrasting things, and I'm feeling that trap more and more of late. I'm sitting in this apartment in Mumbai, and that there's this huge construction coming up next door, which is pretty much going to block out whatever little sunlight I have. And it's almost like a very visual trap now. And I notice myself resisting even going down for a walk. And when you spoke of walking as religion, I'm also present to what I'm losing in the process of what's happening around. And so, yeah, it's almost like I'm wanting my body to, I don't know, do something and go integrate someplace, and I have no idea what to do with it. So yeah, just naming that.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's real what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
May I?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was beautiful. The question I have is about, I love the way you explained the journey of from the mind to the bodily experience, and maybe finally integrating the whole of it. When does the mind or the thoughts sort of take a step back and let the body take over? For example, as you mentioned, walking on the forest floor, what could be the factors, or was it a conscious effort at your end? If you don't mind sharing this.
It's just been always part of my life since I was very young to say walk in the neighborhood. I grew up in Delhi, and immediately, the dog and the friends and playing some kabaddi or something on the city street. So I know the city very well, and I don't alienate myself from nature anywhere, like whether I'm in the city or in the forest. I consciously do not alienate myself but because I know that the body has not alienated itself. So that's much of our suffering is from this conceptual block that we put in, but the body is going out and playing kabaddi in the middle of the street, right? In the sense that you cannot do it without the body. You cannot go for a walk. Your dog wants to go for a walk. It's whining and it's getting out there. So you go for a walk with the dog. And I think these are real needs being expressed, and you do that. If you've got this concrete thing coming up, well, find a place where you can go. It's just keep it simple. It's not complicated. I have a couple of readings that I will do connecting to this subject of being in the city, and we can come back to that and just give you a little taste of how I experience the city. Yeah. Don't give yourself an excuse, because that's where the system is going after you, actually.
Great, thank you. I'll just read a couple of the comments that come up. Michael Chiu says, it's thought-provoking to have the experience being turned inside out through these words, of surfacing and re-remembering the internal embodied processes that connect the body with the wider ecology. It helps me see my body and others in different, more relational ways.
Great.
Thanks for sharing, Michael.
High five.
He's got a throat infection, so he's not able to speak.
Okay.
And Joy says, listening and reading your words have been a bit surreal to my experience and worldview, at least at the mental level. If such conversations ever happened within me, I'm unconscious of it. How could a modern civilized being in quotes ever begin such a dialogue consciously?
So I think maybe I should go to the next piece. Because I sort of did it a little bit through language, and the fact that I try to be very clear in what I perceive and try to then articulate that. So again, the modern predicament, it's become sort of psychosomatic, isn't it? That it's there in our cells now, the sense of grief and alienation and identity issues and so on. But the body doesn't know that. The body is vital. So obviously all the body culture that's also erupted, in the last 20, 30 years is trying to connect you in some ways. But I would just stay simple. And I have a couple of things that I will share with you. So maybe I'll just skip forward actually to a simple thing that works really well. One sec. Is there anything that somebody else would like to add to this point?
There's this another question from Lakshmi Gunashekar, where she asked, can you talk a little bit about facing fears in your journey? How have they showed facing fears in your journey, and how have they showed up, and how your way of holding space for them has changed over time?
So again, there's a question of what the nature of the fear is, because the fear of the forest, the fear of the wild has not really been a problem for me. Fear of alienation from people I love, or the conditions that separate people has been more of an issue, like just physical separation, or whatever the things that we get bogged down by, the fear of loss. With respect to ecological loss, I have actually approached it head on, which is just like you don't have time for that. You just like get on with it. And all of us in our community have gone into it, just like totally dived in. So I don't know where you're pitching the question of fear, because there is a lot of fear of what's the ecological crisis. But I don't go there because I don't have time for that. I feel like that is something that we need to metabolize through action.
Supi, just another question from Girija that's related to just something that you touched upon was, what was the reaction of family and friends to your journey? Did this relational journey with nature require unhinging from human relations as we understand them?
Unhinging from a certain kind of relationship, which I'm culpable of too. It's not just other people. Definitely not from people I love, so it has not been that kind of unhinging from human beings. It is unhinging from a certain sort of culture and a certain mindset and a certain, set of habits. And I think it's very important to distinguish between you as individuals, Gayatri and Lakshmi and Meena and so on as individuals, and humanity and civilization. That again, that's what we're being forced to do, is to put everybody into boxes, and we really must not do that. So I'm not separated from my family, from people I love. I'm not separated, but there are ways of being which I cannot accept, and I have walked away from that, and that's not a problem. That cannot be a problem. It's a conscious choice.
Thank you. There's a heart from Girija, so she's heard your answer. She's traveling and can't interact on the video, so.
Right.
Are you ready for your next?
Oh, I have. Hi. I had a question. Sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand on this.
That's fine.
Thing. Hi, Shruti.
Hey.
How are you? So, I had a little question, and I would like if you could expand a little bit on the fear factor, not of the individual, but of losing the family that you've sort of, or whatever life that you might have left behind to go to a different family or whatever it is, but the fear of the actual ecological loss. Just sort of closing my eyes and going back to Kallampura and to the sanctuary, and even the last time I was there, there's a lot of farming and sort of mountain cleaning for banana plantations, and I can't help but be triggered by it in one form or the other. And of course, one side of me triggers me into action further, and another form triggers me to sadness.
Okay, he's a bit frozen right
Um,
now.
He's now it's not me, right? It's
Sorry, it's not you, it's him.
okay.
I think you could respond, because that if you we get the gist of his question and he can hear this because it's being recorded.
Yeah. This is such a kind of, it's the question, isn't it? That anyone in ecological work or conservation or living in a somewhat remote place, remote to the center of civilization, obviously, gets asked. What I would like to say is two things. One is that we think ourselves to be now at the start of a disaster. I mean, for many societies, many cultures, disaster has been on the way for centuries already. So I don't, I know this is sort of the last forest kind of thing, but the whole subcontinent has experienced it already hundreds of years ago. Cultures have been displaced millennia, like, since the beginning of civilization, there has been the assault on indigenous peoples. So I I can feel the pain and the anger and the outrage at something new that's coming up that's destructive. But again, I try to look at it in a systemic way and not in a specific way. There are specific battles that each of us needs to fight, or specific issues that each of us needs to address. But the systemic issues, so it always gets, we don't spend enough energy, thought, and attention to the systemic issue. So if we know that genocide has already happened for cultures, then what I experience here is a very small thing. If ecocide has already happened at a continental scale for millennia, then this is something, this is the tip of that iceberg, which is not to take away from the profound issues that itself entails. Like if someone hits me, I'm going to feel it, right? But that means that's not the same as dealing with patriarchy. You know what I mean? So not to dwell on the specific, to deal and work on the specific, but to recognize that it's much, much larger. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead to, is there anything else, Lakshmi?
Sorry, I think my internet died.
I answered your question, Sandeep. Pick up the phone, let's talk.
Definitely.
Okay, so I'm going to go do something with kids, and it's just a very helpful way to be really practical, I think. You know, it's a so this piece is called "Where Do You End and I Begin," and I wrote it many years ago, and there's variations on this particular one. When I wrote it, this is how I began. These days, I am obsessed by a question that appears through what feels like every pore of my skin, through my lungs, through my mind and emotions, through the soles of my feet, through every sense and extra sense. It pops up everywhere, all the time. It won't let go. The question is this: where do you end and I begin? I've no claim to originality on this question. In fact, I can't find a thought that originates clearly in me and is mine alone. And maybe that's why this question found me. It saw that I could do with some help. It swooped down into my life and grabbed me by my gut and has since turned everything upside down and inside out. Where do you end and where do I begin? A friend of mine makes the point: how we frame a question in great measure determines the answer. So once again, where do you end? Where do you end and where do I begin? Where do you end and where does your child begin? Where does your child end and where does her friend begin? Where do those children end and where does school begin? Where does school end and where does learning begin? Where does learning end and where does instinct begin? Where does instinct end and intelligence begin? Where does intelligence end and emotion begin? Where does emotion end and where does body begin? Where does body end and person begin? Where does person end and human begin? Where does human end and animal begin? Where does animal end and where does shit begin? Where does shit end and where do bacteria begin? Where do bacteria end and where do roots begin? Where do roots end and where does a plant begin? Where do plants end and where does air begin? Where does air end and where do you begin? You get the drift? So all children love that. Comes back to you. So I thought that bit out, sitting on a grass bank by a little stream just before it makes the last bend around this little sanctuary, near beautiful gray slabs of stones full of otter shit and crumbled crab shells. and I was at that time with 3 panting Rottweilers. A light breeze was dipping the bamboo leaves. My ears were open to the calls of yellow-browed bulbuls going about their yellow-browed bulbul lives. I realized I was sitting on broken up elephant dung from their last visit when they spent 10 days in and around the land. There was elephant dung in the water too, and fish and big tadpoles all around. Root mats of herbs and grass, sand, dung, mud, water plants, fish, crabs, banks of bamboo, water seeping drop by drop out of million minuscule invisible seeps to gather into the stream, which is the Kalampura that Sandeep mentioned, on its way to the Kabini, on its way to the Kaveri, on its way into the lives of people in Bangalore, into their cells and out again. There are traces of elephant, crab, otter poop, and fern root in Bangalore water. It might be fun to remember that the next time you drink the BWSSB water in that city. But the point is, where do each of these end and the other begin? And does it really matter? Does it matter that your drinking water has traces of elephant in it? Traces of chemicals in it, or toxins, or radioactive substances. And I at that time, I was wondering if that simple question would work on the nuclear industry and the whole insane cover-up of the catastrophe of Fukushima in Japan. Where would those radioactive toxins end and your blood begin? Where would your blood end and your flesh begin? Where would your flesh end and your ovaries begin? Where would your ovaries end and where does the fetus begin? Where does the fetus end and leukemia begin? Where does leukemia end and anguish begin? Where does anguish end and rage begin? And where does rage end and action begin? So that my emphasis is really on the connections and on exploring connections, and action that is coming out of these very simple, proximate, nearby, intimate connections has to be the most stable point from which we can have a larger action. And this is something I just come back to all the time, every day, because the point is this, and this is the premise. You know, industrial civilization is killing the planet, and we fail to see the connections, and we behave like there are none, and we behave like we can have a biosphere and eat it too. And a little boy, fellow schoolmate of Sandeep's from another generation, perhaps from the Center of Learning in Bangalore, his name, he just said it very beautifully and simply. And I'd like to quote his summing up of his time with us in Wayanad, some years ago. Staying at the Botanical Sanctuary was a great experience for me. I felt like I was part of a community of a special kind. It was not a community of just people and a community where people are the center of everything. It was a community which also consisted of plants, orchids, impatiens, ferns, mosses, and trees, and a lot more, birds and reptiles and animals. And in this community, the world did not revolve around people, but around everything. Sometimes I felt like a flea living on a huge dog. And in brackets, he puts the sanctuary, because you keep having the feeling that the sanctuary itself is alive. There is a lot to learn in this sanctuary about plants, animals, and also about yourself. This is the real wonderland. So to rephrase this little boy and to extend his metaphor even a little further, the planet and not just the sanctuary is the dog, and we are the fleas on it. And like the fleas, we have a sense that the dog is alive, the planet is alive. And for us fleas to live, we need to ensure that the dog stays alive. So is there a feeling, is there a sense that this whole thing is alive? This whole magical thing is pumping its way through your cells and your mind and your senses, and through all the other beings around you. And that is always this, mindfulness and all that stuff. They go in another direction where I, deeply respect, but I just go to the creatures, I just go to the ants and the bees, and, they're sucking my skin, and then the birds come, and you're talking to them, and you evolve a culture just in this very nearby, proximate, tactile, feely-weely kind of stuff that's real. It's not mental, it's not sentimental, it's real. And this can make you psychologically really grounded, but it can also give you that fight that we so badly need, because no animal is scared of putting up its claws or its talons when it needs to do that. And we are so caught up in this thing of, is this violent? Is this action, non-action? We get into that kind of thing. Is this ahimsa or whatever? We don't respond the way that the body does when it loves something, when it, lavishes, whatever sensations upon itself, when it is afraid, when it runs, it has a full spectrum capacity, the human body, because the rest of nature has this full spectrum capacity, and it will not get fixated on a particular state. No creature, and I can guarantee you that no wild creature will be fixated in a particular state. But your dog might be, because you and your dog get into this tangle and you go on doing these things, and so we do these things to each other, we fixate each other. Whereas the natural world does not waste a fraction of a second in fixation. It cannot. That's the beauty of it. And every moment is new. And you have to learn that from other creatures, not from a guru, that every moment is new. Every moment is fresh. Every moment something is, radically brings a new set of possibilities. And I feel that, the ecological holocaust, and it is a holocaust, has to be met in this very direct way. Moment to moment, to moment, to moment, to moment.
Thank you.
Lakshmi?
Yeah, thank you, Sufi. I'm also just my own little experience just with that has also been that, we get into these states of hyperaction as well, where we are like, we think we can solve this by ourselves, and get very, very disappointed when we can't. And I've been there myself, and that there's something about the collective as well in that, and something about us as, so eloquently you put that I where do I begin and the other end, but also in that action as well, there's something about that and that I feel that I'm slowly beginning to understand from my inside, that there is something around that, and I'm not able to fully articulate it. It's something that I'm learning as we go in Orville with the conflict that we have here. So just wanted to
so just to respond to you, this whole thing of maladaptive stress, which we all know triggered by people, by human beings. I think there is also that with respect to the ecological problem, that the fear is pressing down on us from a number of sources, and not all of them are at all conducive to, and it doesn't help me to save plants or whatever it is that we're doing. I think maladaptive stress and the kind of trigger points around that, and complex things coming at us from the different forms of disconnect, whether it's the social media or education or bad food or whatever it is, and and also that people are relating so much to something far away. They get so triggered by rock stars and news from far away, but they cannot relate to something around them. And action has to be actually very physical. Otherwise, it's somebody online that you have a relationship with them. And the same with the planet. I mean, everybody's seeing a sphere on the screen, but they can't relate to the land around them. Yeah. Somebody's got their hand up.
Yes, Atreyo has his hand up. He's had it for a while. So, Atreyo, please. Did he just disappear?
He's on mute. You're on mute, Atreyo.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, firstly, thank you so much for these very lovely, very provoking words in a way. It's really giving me a lot to just think about. I have a question, or like sort of like a comment, maybe more, that, you know, we understand that, and I think yesterday I was just hearing a talk by Joanna Macy, and she was talking about this culture, this crisis of culture, right? Like where we find ourselves, and what you also spoke about, that the body, or how we sort of look at the body, or how we theorize the body as the seat of ecology, and in some sense this division that's been there between the body and the mind, and nature being seen as the body, and all of that. And while I agree with almost, I think, with everything that you've said, I'm just struggling to understand that, at least where I was located in my past, I feel, you know, bodies are also sort of situated and located within this larger capital order of your job, of your work, of putting money on the table, etc., etc. And I feel, given the enormity of the crisis and this urgent need to really make allies of everyone, more than just the people, let's say, who are attending this session today on a Saturday afternoon, or etc. So I'm wondering there that, like you said, right, like you mentioned this entire idea of the psychosomatic stress, but the stress is sort of felt in a very somatic way, like because I'm working long hours, I have to stuff myself with very unhealthy, very bad food, and because I'm working long hours, I don't physically actually get to walk. So I'm just wondering that, given this is in some sense a reality, it was my reality, so I should not speak for other people, because this was my reality. And in my way, I would like to believe that I revolted or I struggled against it, but I'm just wondering that, how do we get, like, how do I here struggle through or revolt through my body? Because, you know, there's this idea that you do this quiet quitting, where you show up at work, but you don't work, you just do the bare minimum. But then how do I get my body into the picture? And like, how do I pass this message on to other people, nice, kind people within these spaces who are really struggling to just sort of make sense of these things, you know? Well, maybe I could have been more coherent, but I think I just
no, it's completely, you know, it's something so shared by a lot of people, but it's that analytic mind itself that says, oh, this or this, should I have bottled water or water from a tap, when actually the very fact that you have either is a problem, you know, that the river's been piped into either a bottle or a tap, you know. So these false choices that we are pushed to make, you know, shall I do this kind of work or that kind of work for this company or that company? Shall I get this much money or this much money? Shall I, you know, take shall I hire a car or shall I buy a car? You know, all these choices, that's exactly what is being required, or it's being pushed upon, you know, billions of people, that we are to make these choices rather than the real choices. The real choices that the body of the planet, which is the basis of our existence and not the system, is under assault. And your body is the body of the planet. Your body is not separate from it's like saying a tree is not the forest and the tree are together, right? You are the planet. And it's not esoteric stuff. Shall I wear a black t-shirt or a white t-shirt? The fact that you're wearing rayon t-shirts is a problem, right? So can we use a simple form of questioning and conversation and to simplify these questions of choice, personal action, personal states being much more important, mental states being much more important than, the physical, I'm not a reductionist when I say the body is material. Oh, that's, it's not a materialist way of thinking. It is actually to say that cells talk to each other, and, and my body talks to your body. And, it's to emphasize that the real consequence of this mentation is being felt here, and the industrial system is capitalizing on that to make you think like that. So delete anything to do with the industrial system in your mind, at least. Recognize that, okay, so you need to feed yourself, so you have to make these choices, but don't give it any attention. Don't give it any indulgence. Attention, yes, but not indulgence. And, don't, oh, should I have a mobile phone or not? But meanwhile, the American army is pumping out more nuclear arsenal, so you're going to be worried about these sort of things. So maybe these conversations that Lakshmi is hoping with this is to actually get out of that way of making it mine. The body makes it mine. Recognize that. But the body is not mine only. The body is held in community. That's the main lesson that we have to take from the body, is that it is held in community. It is community. It is interbeing. It is ecology. And when the mind starts to, to rest in that, you find your personal peace, but you find also a personal source of action, which is commensurate to your understanding. Don't, if you say, oh, I need to do that there, then that is not the point. The point is right now, what do you need to do? And build on that. And it's a very graceful, it's very factual, and it is fun. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's makes a lot of sense.
So I have a little thing that I can just put in here. So I wrote, I'm considered to be a restoration ecologist. I don't really like labels, but that works. So I wrote this as part of a piece some time ago. If you've never seen the death of a forest, you know nothing about the world as it is today. You can add murder to that. You can say, if you've never seen the murder of a forest, you know nothing about the world as it is today. But if you've never seen the birth of a forest, you have no awareness of the wealth of memories stored in the land. You do not know what has been and what is still possible. Your ignorance of the power of life is unforgivable. You're out with me on that, okay? And it is an abrogation of your one staunch ally in this mother of all wars. So we have to deal with the war at large, ecocide, right? But there are so many things that are still part of this regenerative life force. And if we do not recognize that the earth itself is the most powerful agent in her own resurrection, and you think you're the one who's going to save the planet. No, the planet is going to save herself. Okay, so we all go on about the murder of the Amazon, which of course I have devoted and I still devote so much of my energy to. But I devote my energy and joy and love and play and community to the fact that the forest is still coming into being, and the forest is making more of itself. That is the regenerative power of life that capitalism is trying to tap into. Is my point, is a kind of a little side trip that I go on. That regenerative power of life is what they cannot achieve, because they require the capitalist extractivist industry requires the death of life to make more of itself, right? But the forest is fecund in a way that is unimaginable. So I'm a restoration ecologist. My work is the resurrection of these memories that are still in the land. It's still in the land. And like a phoenix, I've witnessed the forest rising from its own ashes. It burned down for its own meek acceptance of the hand of man. And so I go like, why forest? Why are you allowing this? You know, you can sort of, when you surrender to the power of nature, you can ask these questions, you know, how come you're accepting this? How come you're not just socking that fellow in his, you know? I believe the forest is willful and powerful. Why then did it allow empire to vanquish it so? Why is a revolt not happening or not happening fast enough, you know? A surge of volatile organic molecules, a wash of viral epidemics, a tsunami or searing drought. Why is nature so kind? I wrote this 20 years ago. All these have come to pass. The point being, a restoration ecologist who dwells in place where the land has taught her the foundational principles of its own resurrection makes different conclusions from one who has learned these principles from a text. So let's not be brainwashed on any front. So we have to listen to the land. I mean, nature has come out, according to science, from a few organic molecules. They say it was an organic soup, and out of that came all this. So that is where I placed my hope and my faith, that nature is unbeatable because it has shown it again and again and again. That does not give us the right to do, that does not give human beings the right to do what they do, but do not lose faith because it has shown again and again what it can do. So, you know, what are we being called to notice when we go for a walk on the land? What are we being inspired to do? And this is a question that you can ask in the city. When you see the life in the city, you can ask that question. When your lungs work in the city, you can ask that question. You know, that's another thing I feel like the human lung is industrial civilization's cleanup act of the automobile exhaust. What is the best air filter? The best air filter is your skin and your lungs. What is happening there? So, yeah, another point where we can pause and say something else, maybe. Or is it time up, Lakshmi?
Yeah, we're almost at time. So I would, if anyone has burning questions or comments that they would like to ask, we can do that very quickly now. There have been some questions on chat. Just comments. It sounds very elegant form of surrendering to one's physical, natural senses. Shraddha says, thank you so much. This was very moving and powerful, yet settling. And there's a question around, is this piece, Where Do You Begin, published? Can we have a link?
No, it's not published. Something I do talks around. Are we moving towards the end, Lakshmi?
Yeah, we are. So if you have some.
Yeah, I mean, so I had this chat with Lakshmi, when we met a couple of days ago. And I just want to say that words can be played with and can be explored, and definitions don't have to be held in stone. So, for instance, requiem, I guess it means something for the souls of the dead, right? So then I had a question, would there be different requiems for those who just died of, say, illness and old age? Would there be different songs for requiem for someone who died in an accident? Would there be different songs if people had been murdered, or those who were slain in war or on a battlefield? And I think the thing about the natural world is that it's not just extinction, it's actually extermination. And again, that's a word that I don't use extinction so much anymore. I use the word extermination because these are deliberate. They're not just unconscious acts. So how would we grieve? How would we do justice to those who have been slain on a battlefield in Kashmir or wherever, wherever the wars are happening, and to those beings who have been slain into extinction? For those on the war front of global capital's assault on the living body of the earth, for all member beings in the Council of Life, they're saying, the percentage of mammals in the ocean, of the fish in the ocean, it's very high, the percentage that's gone. The 93% of this Western Ghat biome is gone. It's gone, and it's gone forever. So what is the requiem for one that's been slain by assault? They went down, and as they went down, they were still giving life to the rest of us, all these beings. Then I had a question about the use of the word Anthropocene, because I have not used that. I don't use it without going into its meaning. And so it's a kind of a unit of geological time, as I understand it, which is used to describe the most recent phase in Earth's history, which has the impact of industrial culture on literally in its soil, where human activity has significantly made an impact on the planet's climate and ecosystems. But I would like to qualify that and say, all of human activity? Hang on. Here we are, we're sitting and talking. My friends, my neighbors are regenerating the forest. They've been doing that for millennia. Hang on, who is this anthropos? Is it you? Is it us? I'm sorry, I don't feel part of it, because I grow forests, and there are other people who do amazing things. And, more than half the world's people, or the 99% of all life, is actually still at work. And 99% of human culture is not the 1% that is slaying, that is actually causing this geological condition, that 1%, which is global capital, really, which is industrial, technocratic, militaristic assault on the planet. It's not us. We have to make that distinction. And we can call it sociopathocene or capitalocene or homo stupidocene or something. But to say anthropos means to put all of us into that. And we are, sorry, not responsible for that. Even if we're doing this through the internet, and we're using a machine, this is not the same as the Star Wars mongering, as all that. It is not the same as a US warship. It's not. And the third is loss. So I went into that earlier. It's not loss, it's extermination. It is, personally, you feel it as a loss, but it's actually extermination. They were slaughtered in one way or another, all those who went. Okay. I don't have time to go into the word hope, but I think, Lakshmi, you're going to go into that with the next sessions, and I'll listen to what people have to say about that. Okay, so that's it from me.
Oh, well, thank you, Supi, and thank you for going into just the last bit. You are leaving us very moved right now, and bringing in those distinctions, especially also after I spoke to you. I also really appreciated you bringing in that aspect of the Anthropocene, and so. Just to give, I know it's time and people might have other things planned. So I'm just going into just to give you an overview of the program in the next few weeks. So we'll be sending out an email with, of course, inspiring bits from Supi's talk, but also some readings around the Anthropocene that also explores what she talks about. So the Anthropocene, why the word, where has it come from, some writings around that. Then there also been, very strong criticism of the word, points relating to what Supi has been talking about, which is that not everyone. And so why do we put everyone in the same bracket? Some people are responsible, and how do we hold them accountable for it? Some of you might know, I like asking questions, and I like holding these multiple meanings at the same time. So this is great. And well, join me in thanking Supi for coming and giving everything that she has given to us today. There is a lot of, I wouldn't say time, food for thought, it's food for being. So I would encourage you to go out for a walk if you can. Let her words move through you, and let your body process it. So wherever you are, and embrace the city if you can. And do go for a walk. And I also, Supi, I found some of the questions that you ask around grief, they are great prompts, because we don't have answers for that, but they could be prompts for the participants. We have 60 odd people who've joined this. So I'm going to send those out as questions that people can ponder over, sit, maybe if something comes to you to write, please do write, and please do send it back to us so we can also share it with the group that's exploring this together. We hope to have a gallery at the end with whoever is inspired to, bring their writings, paintings, poetry, whatever they feel inspired, and even including the body dance, whatever that you feel inspired to collect that in one place, online, of course, because this is an online program, but on our website. So thanks everyone for joining. Supi, there are very beautiful words written here for you. I'm going to download the chat and then send it to you so you can read at your own time. Thanks everyone for coming. Would you
Thank you, Lakshmi. Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Supi.
Hey, Sandeep.
Thank you. Oh, this is one from Isa that I want to read out. Thank you for these bracing and embracing words. I feel like I have drunk a gulp of fresh water and taken a deep breath of air. Now I will go and sharpen my claws for the continued resistance and walk in the park. Much love to you all.
Great.
Isa's a young Orwellian. She's been very much involved in the resistance here. So.
Great.
Is Isa there? I'd like to say hi to her.
She's left, Meena. She was there. She was part of the group who had come, but she's left now.
Okay. Just say I said hi to her.
Will do.
Okay, so see you all for the next session. Supi, that was absolutely wonderful.
All right, Meena, we're waiting to see your work.
Are you in Bangalore or are you in Gurukula?
Gurukula.
Okay. We'll talk soon. I'll show you. I'll send you one more photograph. You take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye, Meena.
Bye.
I have to ask her something. She's gone. She's still here. She's put her video on. Hey, Sandeep.
All right. Everyone's gone, or what?
Yeah, just us and Meena.
Yeah, I'm here. What is it?
I'm coming then.
Is that Isa?
No. This is Sophie. She works with me.
Oh, hi. I couldn't see properly, like for a moment. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking about Isa Preto, no?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Fine. Yeah, I've been reading
See
all
you
her
guys
posts.
Yeah.
I've been reading all her angry posts.
She's very active, and it's a very powerful voice.
She is a very powerful young woman.
Yeah,
I must say.
We love her here in Orville.
Good. Good. Anyway, give her my love, and yeah, we will come back for another session. No, this is
Yeah, and
interesting. This is very nice.
We'll talk before that, Meena. So you also
Surely next weekend I'll call you. I'll send you a WhatsApp message and then call you.
will do.
Okay. Okay. You guys take care.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.